Hey there, welcome back. Today I'm just going to go over one of my favorite tropes in books, and that is when the main character is less than morally upstanding. I'm going to be using the phrase sociopath and psychopath basically interchangeably, even though there is a difference, but we're ignoring that for now. Basically, the point of view character that we're following, or at least has a point of view in the series, is like narcissistic, doesn't care about anyone else, does not do good things, egocentric, possibly a legit killer, and we're just along for the ride. I believe my love of this type of character got its start in Death Note, where your typical high school student is given the power of a Shinigami and becomes a mass murdering serial killer bent on becoming the god of the new world. So, yeah, high school student turned serial killer with a narcissistic god complex. It is a wild ride. I loved the spiraling descent into madness, fall from grace, talks of justice and what is right and wrong, and do the ends justify the means. Death Note is my all-time favorite series of all time, and I just love how we're following the point of view of, in any other medium, book, TV show, anime, that person would be the villain, and yet we're following them through this process. We see them before, after, during. It is just great. So I want to read more books that have this type of character. The first Law series is high on my TBR, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But looking back through my Goodreads, I've actually gravitated towards a couple books where the main character is not so great. So, like everyone ever, I watched the Netflix TV show You when it first came out. And then immediately after, I picked up the book, and there are differences. So basically, this is the story of a girl being stalked, but told from the point of view of a stalker. The stalker's name is Joe. We're in his head. And while in the TV show, he is given some redeemable qualities. He's nice to his child neighbor, who is not in the book at all. Yeah, not so much in the book. You are just completely in his head, and it is a detestable time. I hate it being in his head. It is creepy, cringy language. There is just the entitlement and so much disturbing thoughts and phrases that are said and things he does. No redeeming qualities that I can remember. It's been a little while since I read this book, but I did not enjoy the point of view character of this, but I appreciated the idea of telling a story about a woman being stalked from the point of view of the stalker. And I guess because of that, maybe it's a good thing he's not redeemable in any way. He's not relatable. I don't understand him ordinarily when your main character is like the villain or the bad guy. Like, take Breaking Bad. You understand the reasoning for how he got in this situation. You understand and appreciate his thoughts and decisions and why he is doing everything. Even if you don't accept it or agree with it, you at least understand. In You, I was just disturbed the entire time. I gave it probably a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it for the most part, but while I will rewatch the first season of the TV show and eventually continue on, I suppose, yeah, I'm not rereading this book. Another book that I picked up, which is just a fast-paced thriller that I absolutely loved, was Jane Doe. Basically, this woman is a psychopath, sociopath, something. She recognizes that she has no empathy for other people. She acknowledges what she is and is just fine with that. She's living her life, and it is just so interesting reading about how she says, like, I recognize I should feel this way, or this conversation or this issue that this person is experiencing, a normal person should react and say this. So she's recognizing that there's something off about her, and like she's not feeling the emotions that she should. Cool. I loved it. She has a best friend who she genuinely cares for and wants the best for. But then something happens to that character, and you find out what happens when a sociopath, psychopath declares revenge on you. It is full of just dark, dry, twisted humor. She is fantastic. It is such a fun ride. It is such a fast-paced book. I loved it. I loved it. I did. But I could only give it 4 stars just because, like, the bad guys in this story are cartoonishly bad. No redeeming qualities. Just homophobic, racist, misogynistic, the worst type of human scum that you can get. And it's really bad when you relate more to the psychopath, sociopath than the just normal characters. Yeah, I really wish some more complexity was given to all the characters. But I really, really loved Jane. I loved her sense of humor. I loved how she thought, how she spoke. It was just a fun time. I really loved this point of view and being in her head. Highly recommend. I have mixed feelings about the book It. Mostly, I 100% loved Derry. The town that this book takes place in is my all-time favorite setting. It is so good. I loved it for the town of Derry alone. A side note, the plot I have issues with. But one of the characters that's points of view we get a snippet in, just I think it's like a couple chapters, not many, is one of the bullies. And he is terrifying, like full-on psychopath, doesn't even believe like the world exists outside of himself. Like he's the only real one and everything else is just like a construct. So it doesn't matter what he says or does because he's the only thing that matters. So if he has to kill someone, then so be it. It made his life easier. And he manipulates people and he abuses animals. It's just a terrifying character. But those chapters have really, really stuck with me. I need to reread it just to see how I feel about it. I can't even give it an accurate rating because I love Derry so much. But there were many aspects of the plot that I'm like, okay, I gotta take a star rating off for that scene alone. And then another scene happens and I'm just like, you know what, that wasn't cool. And then more words are said and I'm just like, you know, that's not cool either. I love Derry so much. I'm very conflicted on how much I love it. But yeah. Jumping into a classic, Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs. I'm not telling you the plot. You know the plot. It's a classic for a reason. But both are told from the point of view mostly of detectives. However, there are chapters where you're in the minds of the killer. And just those point of views are just disturbing, off the walls, obsessive, and terrifying, just what he's doing and how he's thinking. In the Red Dragon, you have the Tooth Fairy, and I think it's also called Buffalo Bill. Which one's that in? Anyhow. And of course you have Hannibal. And you have the two extremes. You have Hannibal, who is just refined, dignified, but a cannibalistic serial killer. And then you have the less predictable, for lack of a better word, crazy, violent psychopath who is just obsessed with this painting and has issues and does terrible things. And both are just different but entertaining to be in their minds. For a book that I really enjoyed, My Lovely Wife. This was a popular thriller a little while ago, basically told from the point of view of a husband who is a serial killer along with his wife. They work as a team and just like spice up their marriage, their mundane life. And it goes with him and how he interacts with his wife, how he interacts with his children and the neighbors, and just his daily life. And then the victims. But then a body is found. He's like, oh crap, that's not supposed to happen. And it is just him dealing with the consequences of his actions. And it's such a fun time. Again, I gave this one a 4.5. There were a couple structural things that I didn't overly like, but mostly the ending was just tied up in such a neat little bow. Like, it was too clean, too convenient, that I would have preferred, in my head, I had an ending that I wish happened, and it's just a little bit more messy. But overall, really, really enjoyed this book and looking forward to read more from this author. Another book that I've read recently is For Your Own Good. This was just a car crash, train wreck. I loved it. Oh my god, I couldn't look away. So fast paced. The chapters were so short, and you're just moving through the story. And I swear, every character in here is just trying to get crazy with each other. No one is like outright said to be a psychopath, sociopath, but they're so egocentric and narcissistic and just incapable of taking into account what other characters think and feel in their lives. There's not many ways to describe these characters as anything but sociopaths. Briefly, this book has multiple point of views, but the main-ish central character is a English teacher who just wants the best for his students and to teach them to be good, morally upstanding citizens and all that, and punish those he views as bad. I swear, the logic of these characters, like, this thing happened, so let's do this other crazy thing to make it better. What? That crazy thing didn't work? Let's commit murder. It's such a wild ride, but so much love and care was put into these characters and this plot. I highly recommend it. Easy 5 stars, so much fun, a little bit crazy, but I just loved being in the head of these characters. Even the one that I despised more than anything else, like, I hated this character. He done something that hurt me, and I'm just like, why? No, you are the worst. People like you actually exist, and I hate it. But it was so much fun to be in his head. I enjoyed his chapters so much. And I don't know why, but it was great. I highly recommend this book. Another book that I read, knowing nothing about it going in, is called The Sleep Experiment. I did not expect to be reading from the point of view of a sociopath or psychopath in this book, but I was, because there's no other way to describe how much he did not care about any other character ever, and is just like, nah, the ends justify the means, I'm gonna go do it. Basically, a professor at a university is conducting a sleep experiment where he takes 2 volunteers, gives them experimental gas to keep them awake, and just so many bad things happen from there. I gave this book, I believe, 3.5 to 4 stars, because I really enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the plot, especially after, say, like, the first third of the book. That's when a tonal shift happens, and we're like, oh, just crazy, off the walls. This is what we're doing now? Cool. But there was some instance of unnecessarily sexually exploitative stuff that happens that I just like, that was not necessary. We did not need to do this. But I just had a blast reading this book. We'll definitely read from this author again. Highly recommend. The conversations about the scientific experiments and going too far and morally and ethically, like, should this experiment be done for, like, do the ends justify the means? In this book, I'm going with no. And now, my all-time favorite thriller, which I refer to just my twisty twist book. I hold all other thrillers to this bar, The Kind Worth Killing. A very simple premise. A man walks into an airport bar, strikes a conversation up with the lady next to him, and says eventually, God, I could just kill my wife. Her response, well, why don't you? And then they plot to kill his wife. Just egocentric characters that are manipulative and just okay with the amount of violence needed to get what they want or take revenge or anything like that was insane. I don't think anyone is directly, like, referred to as a sociopath, psychopath, but there's no other way to describe them. Again, I just call this my twisty twist book because I had no idea where the plot was going half the time. Granted, I was new to thrillers, so I do really need to reread this to see if it holds up, but in my head, it's just the best story ever, with my all-time favorite plot twist, with such complex characters, and I just loved it. Highly recommend. So those are books that come to mind that I've read that discuss and deal with a more sociopath, psychopath, not good, morally not upstanding character that we're just being told the point of view of. Um, I really, really love this. Don't get me wrong, I love characters who are just very kind and self-sacrificing, would like die for their friends and family, would sacrifice their own well-being and things they want for someone else. It's a great point of view, it's a great character to read from, but I love the contrast to the, nah man, this is what I want, this is how I'm going to get it, you get out of my way or I go through you. I just love the characters and I want to see how they got that way. Was it environmental? Did something happen to them and they just got tired of taking everybody's abuse? And it's like, no, I don't care about you anymore. I don't care about your feelings. I'm going to take care of myself now. Or were they born like this with just no empathy, never did, never have, don't even know the concept of caring about others' points of view or feelings or wants or needs? It's irrelevant to them. Did they slowly spiral into this madness field, or did they walk into it with eyes wide open and choose to just say, screw everyone else, ends justify the means, I'm gonna do this. So anyway, those are my favorite books with just psychopathic characters. I loved it. Tell me what your favorite point of view character is that kind of embodies this character trope, and I'm probably going to read it because I need to read more. See ya. Bye.